So I've been aware there's really a lot of change happening. And I've been wondering how each of you, all of us, have been impacted by that, feeling that, managing that, whatever those changes are in the world or in your lives. I've been noticing for a long while, probably for the last 2 years, for me, there's this sort of underlying fatigue and exhaustion that often seems to not be able to be replenished. And in the last few weeks, I've really been noticing how things have been impacting me through my dreams. So I've been, during the day, business as usual, seeing clients, making food, doing dishes. And at night, having dreams of, looking out to sea and seeing the ocean rising and engulfing everyone who's in the water or on the beach. Or dreams of tornadoes falling from dark skies. Or dreams where I have to suddenly grab one or two belongings and flee and run, knowing that I'm never going to return. And, without having to analyze these too much, I'm aware, like, wow, there's some impact here in the body and mind and heart. And my system is trying to process things and make sense of things. And I feel like, we have been facing and dealing with just massive, massive changes in the last few years. With the pandemic, a lot of political changes in this country, in the US and elsewhere. Certainly a lot of massive environmental changes, and then what's happening in Ukraine or in other places, in Sudan, in Syria, Myanmar. And some of you may already have parts of you that are like, right now, I don't come here for that. I don't want to talk about those things. I come here for refuge. And I'm with you in a lot of ways. And yet I also feel like we do come here in a way for that, not to talk about the content of what's happening in the world, but to learn how to be with the truth of change and how things are, with some measure, some degree of mindfulness and equanimity and acceptance. And impermanence is foundational in Buddhism, right? It is just like the foundational truth. It's the first of the three characteristics of existence, and the other two really flow from it. So the Pali word, I'm sure many of you know, Anicca, translated usually as impermanence, or things are always changing. And we know this, right? Everyone here, I'm sure, is like, yep, things change, I know it. But there's a way in which we don't fully know it, or we keep forgetting it, or it's really hard to align with. Octavia Butler said, all that you touch, you change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. And that feels so in line with Buddhist teachings. Suzuki Roshi, who was a very well-known Zen teacher, was once asked to summarize Buddhism in one sentence. And he said, everything changes. Everything changes. And again, right, our minds don't like change. They're conditioned to resist it. And so anicca, impermanence, the first truth of existence, and dukkha is the second. It's often translated as suffering, but I really prefer the translation of unreliability or instability. So because everything is changing, we can't rely on anything to stay the same. And that's the source of so much of our suffering and struggle. And it's especially difficult when massive changes occur. And I feel like it's really important to remember that we don't have to drink the ocean in one gulp, right? That we don't have to expect ourselves to hold or understand these really huge layered changes around us that are the result of so many conditions coming together. That fortunately we have this practice. This whole practice is a training in being with change and impermanence. And the Buddha valued practicing, contemplating, and really being with change almost more than anything else. There's a wonderful sutta where he's sort of naming all of these things that are of merit and fruitful, and each one more fruitful than the previous. So he talks about a wealthy person who gives, food and bedding and drink and silver cups. And he says, as fruitful as that giving is, it is yet more fruitful to take refuge in the teachings and in community like we're doing here. And yet, as fruitful as that is, he says, it is even more fruitful to maintain loving kindness in being for only as long as the milking of a cow. I don't know how long exactly that is, but we hear loving kindness, really important. But he goes on, as fruitful as that is, yet it is still more fruitful to maintain perception of impermanence in being for only as long as the snapping of a finger. Just that long. He says, better a single day of life perceiving how things rise and fall than to live out a century yet not perceive their rise and fall. So important. Impermanence. It's fundamental. And our meditation practice really does just that. It helps us be with those small moment-to-moment changes in our ever-changing bodies, in sounds. And this is the doorway really to wisdom and to understanding everything. And if we can't be with the shifting changes of one breath, or the ending of a sound, or the unfolding of a sensation in the shoulder, how will we be with those larger, more difficult changes in our lives and in our world? Right? How will we be with those larger births and deaths? Sogyal Rinpoche said, there would be no chance at all of getting to know death if it happened only once. But fortunately, life is nothing but a continuing dance of birth and death, a dance of change. Every time I hear the rush of a mountain stream or the waves crashing on the shore or my own heartbeat, I hear the sound of impermanence. I love that. I hear the sound of impermanence. And connecting with impermanence in this way, in this embodied way, it doesn't have to be depressing or down. I've been thinking about Bill and how often when we were sitting together, he would say, it may not always be so. It will not always be so. And I always experience that as kind of a moment, a reason to awaken and connect. Right. This in-breath, that bird singing, this particular constellation of people here together in this moment, it will never be just so again. That really encourages me to be here with those gentle, smaller changes, hopefully more and more to the larger ones. And I read also recently, change is just another word for living. To live means to change. But yeah, that's right. I want the out breath to turn to the in breath. I want to be alive. And we also begin to notice what our habitual ways are of relating to change, big and small, right? Do we shut down? Do we intellectualize? Do we dissociate? Do we try to take it all in and understand it and get completely overwhelmed? Right? And no problem, none of those things are bad or wrong, but they're not necessarily mindfulness. So I hope we can get back to basics with this, kind of like Maria was encouraging us on Monday with the body. You know, we're ending our time focusing on metta and moving back to the holding environment. Being with moment to moment change feels like both a kindness and a way of holding ourselves here. And I think about Tanisara as a wonderful meditation teacher. She said that often when she meditates, she holds the phrase, just this much. Just this much. Can I be with just that out breath? Or, you know, just the ending of that sound. And opening up to more only as we can. So I wanted to end just sharing the words of a chant that I find really helpful. I'm not going to sing it really, but I'll sing a little. So in English, the chant means, all conditioned things are impermanent. Their nature is to arise and pass away. To live in harmony with this truth brings the highest happiness. So I'll just go line by line once. All conditioned things are impermanent. Anicca vata sankhara. Their nature is to arise and pass away. Upadavaya damino. Upakituva nirujanti. To live in harmony with this truth brings the highest happiness. Te san upasamo sukho. So let's practice together today, being with moment to moment change as we can. Thank you so much.